Disclaimer!
Hello, I'm the Nostalgia Critic. No, I'm not gonna do that to you. John Wick is a series of movies about a man cursed with grievance over his beloved wife passing away, acting out vengeance on the people who wrong him during his retirement of his very deadly, violent job of being an assassin. I say series instead of trilogy though, because it's already been announced that in either 2021 or 2022, the fourth chapter of John Wick's story is going to be released. And just recently I was talking with my dad about the John Wick movies, and I got an itching to watch them, so I sat down a few nights later and watched all 3 movies, then I later rewatched all 3 movies for this very video. What is this video, you might be asking? Well, if you had patience, you would know it by now, because I was about to tell you. But no, you had to get questioning, and now I gotta delay the answer in order to belittle you into knowing to just be quiet in certain circumstances. Okay, so basically, this video is going to be me going through all 3 John Wick movies that have been released, giving my review of each and every one of them, and then in the end ranking them from, in my opinion, worst to best. Or in other words, least favorite to favorite. The reviews are obviously going to contain major spoilers, but that's okay, because the ranking is just going to sum up all my thoughts in a very quick, easy, and no spoilers manner. And of course, as per usual, timestamps are on the screen, in the description, and the pinned comment. And also one last note, all gameplay you see in this video is done by the wonderful Valen, aka Braden. He streams Rainbow Six Siege on Twitch every now and then, and occasionally uploads Siege montages on his YouTube channel. So if you're interested in Siege, go follow him on everything he's on. All links are in the description and comment section as well. Alright, let's get into it. Wick was released on October 24th, 2014 with a story about a man by the name of John Wick, played by Keanu Reeves, retiring from his evil, gruesome job to live with his wife. Later on, his wife dies of an unnamed disease, leaving John a puppy so he can love a living being and not his car. That is until this punk-ass bitch comes along, kills the dog, steals the car, and for the next hour we get to see John Wick go fucking ham! This movie does so much shit that I don't often see in most films. It has an evil villain that's just as charismatic, maybe even more than the main character, without being the highlight of the movie, that respects the main character and what he does, sometimes even being friendly to the main character, while also trying to get his way, which, in this case, is killing John Wick. It makes reference to the generic movie dialogue and dumb, stupid, annoying characters, but not in a fourth wall-breaking Deadpool kind of way.
Father, I can make this right. Oh, how do you plan that? By finishing what I started.
What the? I didn't hear a fucking word I said.
You have a total subversion of expectations when it comes to the main kill of the movie. Here I was expecting some big speech about John's dog and wife and car right before killing Yosef, but nope, John just slow motion shoots him in the head mid-sentence and then walks away without saying a word. You don't really get an origin story for the main character either. Most of an origin or backstory given to John Wick is just occasionally being told of him being a legend at his job before retiring. And that's it. And even though we're barely told a backstory for this character, he's still written in a way that he's a full fleshed out character. This one's a personal point for me, but you have an annoying character that doesn't bring down the enjoyability of the movie. Because 9 times out of 10, when this little bitch is being annoying as shit, he gets knocked the fuck back and put in his place by someone else in the same scene.
You scared of the fucking boogeyman?
I'm not. No. But you should be.
And then you have the fucking god-tier soundtrack. Holy shit! A soundtrack that's just a blend of EDM, rock, cinematic orchestral, and a little bit of synthwave. Holy shit. Tyler Bates, Joel J. Richard, and Leigh Castlevania deserve a lot of credit for this beauty. Also, Think by Kaleda is very, very, very beautiful, and it's just amazing. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. On top of all that, every character and interaction is just amazing. The humor in this is just so simple yet effective. I don't think I've laughed this much while watching an action film that isn't MCU or Deadpool. Ian McShane as Winston is phenomenal, and he overtakes every scene he's in for the entire series. Michael Nyqvist as Vigo is amazing. Whoever wrote this character did a damn good job because he is both friendly and evil and has such a great personality, and Michael plays into the role very well. Every scene this dude is in is just so great. He is easily on the list of best movie villains of all time for me. John Leguizamo, apologies if I just butchered the shit out of that last name, as Aurelio, apologies if I also just butchered the shit out of that name, is also just fantastic. I absolutely love the car shop scene, how badass this dude is. It's only a shame that he's barely in this series. I absolutely love Lance Reddick as Sharon. His voice is just amazing, and I'm so glad that later in the movies his character gets to show off a bit more. But even in this movie, it's such a joy when he's around. And of course, you have Keanu Reeves as John Wick, which... is there anything I can fucking say? John Wick is just such a badass character, and Keanu plays him so well. And on top of all of this, Willem Dafoe is in this movie, which is like an automatic 5 points. There's also so many great scenes in this. My personal favorite has to be the club chase scene between John and Yosef, where there's this perfect contrast between the two. Yosef is shit his pants terrified, running and pushing everyone, while John is slowly moving through the crowd, sliding in between people, occasionally shooting down someone in the head, while all being soundtracked by LED spirals, and then naturally transitioning into shots fired with this beautiful fucking synth line. Have I mentioned how much I love this soundtrack? And then there's the heartbreaking scene of John getting beat up, and then the death of Daisy, which... I've only known this dog for 10 to 15 minutes, and yet seeing it die just hurt so much. On a brighter note, I really love this scene as well. Like a lot.
Cool it. John! Hey, where is he? Shit!
This movie also has a couple moments towards the end where I thought it was going to end and then it just continues going. And in the case of a movie being this great, I don't mind it. Especially how it never ruins the movie for it to continue going on. And it also starts the way it ends, which, while that not being a brand new thing, I still find it quite nice. So yeah, John Wick is a really great movie that does a lot of different things than most action movies do. Back this up with an incredible soundtrack and some amazing casting, and you got yourself a fucking masterpiece. And obviously, when you make such a great movie like this with a $20 to $30 million budget and it brings in $80 million, you're gonna have to make a sequel. And the question is, does it hold up to the original? No, it does not. John Wick Chapter 2 was released on February 10, 2017, and it brings back 3 of the main characters from the first films, John Wick, Winston, and Sharon. It also adds some new characters like Ares, played by Ruby Rose, Cajun, played by Common, Santino D'Antio, played by Ricardo Scamacho, Gianna D'Antio, played by Claudia Gianni, you have no idea how many times I tried to pronounce that, and Bowery King, played by Lawrence Fishburne. And overall, this movie's boring. It follows John Wick having an old friend come back to him with a thing called a marker, which is pretty much a blood pact. After John refused to honor the marker, the friend, Santino D'Antio, blows up his house, forcing John to honor the marker. John's then assigned to kill Santino's sister, Gianna, in order for Santino to gain the high chair. So John kills her, gets in a couple fights with her bodyguard, Cajun, and then hunts down Santino to kill him. All while this happens, Santino puts a hit out on John. Any of this sound familiar to you guys?
Yeah, it's like the plot to 86% of action movies.
Well, I don't know who the fuck that was or where he came from, but yeah, he's right. I just want to know, who is the person who decided that the best way to follow up a movie that does so many things differently is with a movie that does the most generic shit I've ever fucking seen? I will say the first 15 minutes of this movie is pretty fun to watch, but once they introduce Santino, I just don't fucking care. The first movie was very personal with its plot. John Wick retires, but then someone kills and steals his 2 sources of happiness, so he goes batshit, hunts them down, kills them and anyone in his way. An hour and 10 minutes of this 2-hour movie is spent with John going out and killing Santino's sister, because he's forced to, and then coming back to New York, and this shit is so fucking boring. The only thing I like about this plot is that it's kind of a nice callback to Winston's line to John in the first movie.
You dip so much as a pinky back into this pond, you may well find something reaches out and drags you back into its depths.
But again, the great thing about the first movie to me was how personal the motive was. John is pissed and is out to kill Yosef because Yosef fucked with him. Most of this movie, however, is spent with John just being a fucking hitman, and it only picks up when he actually goes and gets his vengeance, and even then, it doesn't really pick up that much. Not to mention, the first 15 minutes of this film is picking back up from the first one, and him getting his car back. But then it's just completely fucked up and totaled, and then taken from him. And spoiler alert, we don't see it for the rest of this movie or for the entirety of the third movie. So basically, after this car goes, all motive and connection from the first movie is just gone and we're on a completely different trip. And it's so it's a boring movie. There is so little that happens in this that I genuinely have nothing to say about it. Nothing happens for over an hour. Most of the fights seem way too drawn out. And I couldn't give a flying fuck about this dude's fucking motives. It's like Vigo, but without all the fun and personality and likeness and basically everything that made Vigo so great. So in layman's terms, this dude is some fucking generic bad guy shit and it fucking sucks. The only things I can give this movie is I occasionally like Ruby Rose, the death of Satino is pretty nice, Charon is great as usual, the mirror scene is pretty dope, and Lawrence motherfucking Fishburne. Seriously, I want more Lawrence in these movies because he is easily the best part about this one. But even the fucking soundtrack is boring, to be honest. The only thing I can remember off of this is the song played during the Club Scene remake that sounds kind of like LED Spirals if it was ordered off of Wish. It's just a boring movie that does barely anything in its 2-hour runtime. I genuinely have little to say about it, and it's not a fun experience. And that sucks, because this is a fucking John Wick movie, and I want to have fun watching Keanu kick ass for 2 hours, but that's not what I get from this. And this movie is 20 minutes longer than the first one, and it feels like it. So the question after this is Chapter 3 any better? Yeah. Kinda. John Wick Chapter 3 was released on May 17, 2019, and it picks up immediately after Chapter 2, with John running for his life after being given only an hour before becoming excommunicado. We learn a bit more about John's origins, finding out that he's an orphan raised by a church that also taught him his fighting moves and skills. John then goes on a long journey to find out how he can become non-excommunicado, just to end up getting his ring finger cut off and being told he has to kill Winston. All while this is happening though, one of the High Table members, titled the Adjudicator, starts going to all the people who helped John Wick in the last movie, giving each of them punishments while also hiring samurai ninjas, which the leader, Zero, played by Mark Dacascos, ends up being a big fan of John Wick and has a lot of respect for him. Something that's very reminiscent of Vigo, especially during the classroom fight, and it's quite nice, especially coming after John Wick 2. And I also have to give the actor for the Adjudicator, A.J.K. Dillon, and the crew props for making a non-binary character that actually has a personality and isn't just, oh, I'm non-binary, that's all I am, is non-binary. And because of this movie, I went and watched 2 videos that featured Asia, and personality is the polar opposite of this character's personality. But with that being said, I cannot stand this bitch! They are the biggest cunt in this series, and I just gotta give praise to Asia for pulling it off so well. Especially with the fact that their actual real-life personality is the polar opposite of this character's. Doesn't mean I like the character, though. They're kind of like Yosef, but more power-hungry than cocky, and doesn't really get put in their place in most scenes. The only time that I can think of that happening is when Winston hangs up on them, which is just so fucking funny.
You can keep this up, but I assure you.
Speaking of Winston, we get more of him and Sharon, even giving Sharon some badass moments. What else could I ask for? And to top it all off, Lawrence Fishburne is back. And he's great. He's just so great. I absolutely love the ending scene of this movie. Speaking of things I love, the action scenes are probably the best in the series. Personal favorites would be one that I'll get to later, the fight with John Sophia, played by Halle Berry, and her dogs, because that shit was dope. And also the knife fight scene at the beginning of the movie that has no music at all while still being enjoyable as all hell to watch. But then you get some weird shit, like a fight on the road between motorcyclists and John on a fucking horse, and then later on, John being in the desert. Which I remember being longer the first time I watched it, but I guess not. I don't know. The movie really hits its peak at an hour and a half in, because this is when you get more Winston, more Sharon, and my favorite fight scene in this movie that is just as good as the club scene in the first movie. That fight being the fight in the Continental. Also, this movie has the same line as Endgame.
No, I don't think I will.
Overall, John Wick 3 is pretty good, and also has the same kind of subversion of expectations that the first movie had. I genuinely believe that they had killed off the Bowery King, and that they were going to kill off Winston. And even though I knew about the fourth movie, and that I knew that this movie ended off at, you know, a very opening of a sequel, I actually believe that John Wick was dead. And what was going through my head was, are they going to do generic Hollywood where they're just going to make a sequel that doesn't even feature the main character? Or is the fourth movie going to be a prequel, or are they going to do some bullshit where it's like, oh, well, actually this happened, or, you know, but no, he's fine. Just goes to show how great these movies are when it comes to subverting my expectations. Looking at you, Rian Johnson. Now it's time to rank all three of these movies from my least favorite to my favorite. At the bottom we have John Wick 2. The film is just incredibly boring for like 80% of its runtime, and it doesn't do anything new. It just sticks to the most generic action movie shit possible. It's a massive downgrade from the first one, and the only two contexts that I can think of where I would rewatch this is either for a review, or if I'm hanging out at someone's place who for some reason has John Wick 2 as their favorite John Wick film. I'd give it like a 3 out of 10. At number 2, we have John Wick 3. The action scenes are insanely good, very entertaining, and easily the best in the series. It also has more screen time with my favorite characters, but it still has some of the flaws from John Wick 2. Some scenes from this movie is boring, one of the villains isn't a joy to be around, and even the soundtrack isn't that special. It has more memorable moments than Chapter 2's soundtrack, but that's like 3 times. Overall, it's a good movie, especially during its last 30 to 40 minutes, and I could see myself being down to rewatch it if it was on TV or a friend wanted to watch it. But willingly sitting down to watch it, I don't know. Maybe I would just for that final fight scene. Overall, I'd give it probably a 6.5 out of 10. And at number 1, we have the first John Wick movie. I mean, what can I say? This is a fucking masterpiece of a film for me. It does so many things differently than most films, is entertaining from start to finish, and has a fucking beautiful soundtrack. After my first watch of this movie, it was easily my second favorite film of all time, which is weird given the score I have for this movie and the score I have for my favorite film, but that's a video for another time. I easily give John Wick a genuine 10 out of 10. It is a rare piece of media that I have absolutely zero complaints with, and I would see myself rewatching this constantly. Anyway guys, that's the video. What did you guys think of the John Wick movies, and how would you rank them? Tell me in the comments down below. I again want to give a huge thanks to Valen for letting me use his gameplay for this video. If you like Rainbow Six Siege, I highly suggest you go check him out. His Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter will all be in the description and comment section. And I also want to give a thanks to Shadow for providing his wonderful voice for a bit in this video. Fun fact, that was an actual quote from him when we were discussing the John Wick movies. So his Twitter and Instagram will be in the description and comment section as well. Anyways, my social media is on the screen and in the description and comment section if you want more garbage content and updates on things that I'm doing. I also make music, so links to that are in the description down below. I have a new album coming out on July 3rd, and depending on when this video comes out, some of the singles might already be released. So if you like instrumental music, please go check those in my album out when they're released, because it's some of the most proudest work I've ever made. And I also have a Discord server where you can play games, claim waifus, gain a ton of custom emotes if you have Nitro, and much more. We're just overall trying to build a community, so if any of that sounds interesting to you, the link to join is in the bottom of the description as well as in the pinned comment. Hope you have a good day. Peace out.